Hello, fight fans, and welcome to the Combat Challenge podcast. My guest is a middleweight professional athlete with over 20 fights to his name. He has competed on prestigious organizations such as BAMR, KSW, Cagewarriors, and was on season 19 of The Ultimate Fighter. He is the former Cagewarriors middleweight champion and the former Cage Contenders middleweight champion. Most of his bouts, professionally or amateur, were under the guidance of internationally recognized coach John Kavanagh. He has won the British Nationals and Winter Opens in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu whilst he was a purple belt, and he's been issued his brown belt under the guidance of coach Tom King. Mr. Chris, the Housewives Choice Fields. Chris, thank you so much for joining us, my brother.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, man. I'm excited.
Brother, how was that introduction?
It was better than Bruce Buffer.
Well, the thing is,
sorry to everyone. I have to wear a hat because my barnet's a mess at the moment. We haven't been allowed to have haircuts in Ireland for about 4 months. So, yeah, it's not looking great.
Brother, I'm the same, right? If you look at some of my podcasts, I used to have it on 0 and then 1, and now it's just like a bouffon. So I have to like put on it, to keep it down. Otherwise, it just goes poof.
Yeah, I've got the grey starting. The earphones are covering it, but the grey is starting to stick out the sides now. I look like a wild man.
Brother, look there.
You need to own it. You need to own it.
Yeah. My days are numbered, man.
It's all about the Clooney. It's all about the Clooney these days.
Brother, maybe not these days. You've had grey for a while, my brother, if you don't mind me saying.
Always. I think I started at about 18, mate. You know what I mean? I started decaying at 18. Yeah.
Chris, listen, my brother, the first thing I've got to ask you, man, this fight name, now me as an MC, I've introduced loads of fighters, but there's very few that are quite unique, and this is a unique one, the Housewives Choice. Talk to me about that, man.
Well, weirdly, and the world is a lot more PC these days. But I used to be, not that it was ever acceptable, I was given the name The Killing, so it was Chris the Killing Fields. I was given it to make it awkward for me, but the rule is if you're given a name, that's the name you go with. So I was that for years. And then I was doing an interview with one of the lads from Severe MMA, and apparently a couple from the boys back in the day, a couple of the lads, their mothers or their mothers-in-law had a little thing for me. So I was called the Housewife's Choice, and I thought, I'll own that. I'll own that. So to be honest, I kind of laughed about it at the time. And by the time I got home, I was fighting on BAM at the time. They changed my name to the Housewife's Choice from The Killing. They changed it on Sherdog, on Tapology, on everything. So I was like, all right, well, here we are. I'll go with it.
Well, because I did my research, and like you said, on Tapology and Sherdog, it's down as the Housewife's Choice. I think they want to get rid of The Killing, brother, and they want to lead you down a different path here, my friend.
Yeah, I think so. They're doing me a favor, to be honest, mate.
Chris, one of the things I've got to ask you, my brother, is this. Your martial arts journey from a young age, can you share with us the timeline from what sports and disciplines you got into and how you ended up where you are now? Yeah,
so I started off at about 6 years old. I hassled my parents into letting me do kickboxing, and then I basically did that from about 6 to about 17, and then did the usual kind of going out partying, trying to pull girls, all the usual stuff that 16, 17-year-olds do. But I'd also done karate in that time and stuff like that. They just dabbled around, loved martial arts movies as a kid. All the old school kind of dubbed ones, the badly dubbed where the lips are still moving. Yeah, the Wu-Tang Clan stuff, So I did that, like shiny pants kickboxing for years. And then I kind of drifted from martial arts for a few years, found my way back to it then. Probably about 3 years, 16 to 19, I wasn't training. And then I started training again, and I started dabbling in all different martial arts then, kind of going, well, if the fight ended up in a clinch, what would I do? So I started training judo. I didn't really know what MMA was at the time. It existed, I just didn't really know anything about it. And then I was doing, I went to a jiu-jitsu club, but it was Japanese jiu-jitsu. So they did some ground fighting. But I thought I was doing what the Gracies were doing at that point, and yeah, I wasn't. But we figured it out along the way. I was lucky that one of the coaches there was actually training in SBG at the time, and he was a blue belt. So he used to roll me. I used to stay back and roll him all the time, and then he brought me along, and then here we are.
Cool,
so a bit of everything.
For sure, brother. And those shiny pants, are they the ones where it's got to be above waist with all the kicks, right?
Yeah, yeah. And strange because I love a leg kick now, but yeah, it was the so I'm pretty flexible still because that's one thing I'll give like the likes of those martial arts. I kind of think the perfect style for striking is their style mixed with Muay Thai. So that kind of like in and out K1 style basically. In and out, try not to get struck as much, but then when you do land, you land big heavy shots, you know.
And Muay Thai, man, they kind of really drop it down, don't they, with the shins?
Yeah,
Really,
chopping. Yeah, so like I think for the low kicks, that style of that curve down, and then for the high kicks, more the shiny pants kick, kicking up, you know, off the knee. So less power but faster, more chance of landing. That's the style I prefer.
for sure, brother. Well, a similar kick was done by Paddy the Baddy Pimblett on his fight recently on Cagewarriors. It was kind of like the question mark kick where it kind of came up and then they flicked over. And
Yeah,
that's how we caught
yeah,
the
one of
guy
my
off guard.
favorites. Yeah, yeah. Paddy's legit. Delighted to see him get signed, man. What a good guy. Like known Paddy for a long, long time now. You know, he's been around a long time, and so what? So we've kind of come across each other a lot. He's a real good guy. I like actually that whole squad of guys seem to be pretty cool. Next gen. I trained there many years ago. I think actually one of the first people I ever rolled with in the gym was Paddy, and he was like 14 or 15 at the time. And he was legit then, like his grappling was solid then. I think I was over with Artem Lobov. He was fighting in Liverpool on, remember the old OMAC shows? I was cornering Artem and I went down to Next Gen just to get some training while I was there and I was rolling and Paddy was rolling at the time. And just delighted to see the kid go on to something spectacular like this. And I think he'll have a great run in there. I'm happy for him. I messaged Paul as well because I was saying like, everyone kind of talks to the fighter, but Paul's pretty much, I'd say he's dragged Paddy out of plenty of party over the years to keep him on the straight path. You know what I mean? So I messaged Paul to congratulate him as well. I was delighted to see him get on.
For sure. And Cagewarriors, they put a post up today about Paddy's journey and all like his weigh-in photos. And it was crazy to see how young he looked to how he's matured physically as well.
Yeah, he looked a lot bigger in his most recent fight, didn't he? He looked a lot bigger and stronger, more muscular, and he looked like even what he was landing with way more power. You know, he did a lot more damage when he did land. So, you know, like I said, happy for him. It's good to see good people get ahead. You know,
for sure. And I had so I've had Paddy on the podcast, and I've had a couple of others from Next Gen. But more importantly, I had Paul Rimmer. You know, like you just talked about. He's just such a cool guy, man. He's so humble, and he's somebody that people kind of, you know, forget that he's just in the background, but he's so significant to those fighters, right?
yeah. Well, that's the way it seems to me, anyway. Like I said, the first time I went down, Paul was the coach. He's still there. He's been their coach for what, maybe like how long is he coaching Paddy now? What's Paddy?
I'd say Paddy's about 26.
He started fighting at what, 18? 17, so eight years, and like Paul's always been there with him, so like to have him on his side. Paul has tons of experience at every level in the sport as well, you know. I was chatting to him at the last Cagewarriors because one of my guys was fighting one of his guys. We were chatting afterwards about some of the tactics, and he's smart. He's switched on as a coach as well. Real nice guy. A lot of time for him. Like I said, a lot of time for that squad in general. Nice guys.
Yeah, for sure, man. Now, brother, we've got to touch on you being on The Ultimate Fighter. Now, back in the days, like I was saying to you before we came on, that now you have UFC every week and it's quite diluted. And back in the days, you know, you'd look forward to something coming on. And early days with The Ultimate Fighter, it was amazing to watch and see people living in one house. Can you tell us who were the coaches and talk to us about your experience on there?
Yeah, so the coaches from my show were Frankie Edgar and BJ Penn. BJ was my coach. The experience I really cherished or I don't really like I think it's kind of an outdated concept. The idea would be like that, you know, like people didn't train full time, so they had to have jobs or whatever else, and so you cram them into a house. They get to train full time, eat properly, all that kind of stuff. We were all doing that already. We were all training correctly. We were all training full time. We all had our coaches. We all had everything. And so now it was more like just a pressure cooker. You know, didn't really suit my personality. You know, it was a great experience. Something like I liked, and it's great now as a coach to know it. So if any of my guys are thinking of doing anything like that, or you know, but yeah, it wasn't my favorite thing in the world. I think people think that it's a little bit of it's for show. You're actually not allowed to have a phone. You're not allowed to send an email. You're not allowed to receive a letter. can't, like, no books, no music, nothing, like zero, zero. So it's literally just in a house with nothing in it and other people, and everyone's highly strung. It's a bit weird, like,
So
you
no
know.
books as well.
No books. You're allowed the Bible. I read the Bible 3 times in there. I'm not even a believer, man. You know what I mean? But nothing else to do, so I read a Bible 3 times. Yeah, yeah. Played a load of chess. That's what I mean. You kind of, like, yeah. It's a very strange environment. So I think the modern version of it is to kind of coax people into getting annoyed and angry at people, you know. Whereas the older version with, like, Forrest Griffin and stuff, it was more lads were sleeping on couches. They couldn't afford to eat because they were getting paid nothing for fights. So yeah, it's a very different setup. But look, it was great to train with the likes of BJ. It was great to train with some of the guys on it, and it was a whole new experience. And you know, the other thing is, was an opportunity. You had to grab it with both hands and go for it. You know.
Yeah, for sure. And if you think about the production team, Chris, their focus is to make it entertaining. And one of the ways
Yeah.
to make it entertaining is not to have people sat around watching telly, reading books. There has to be some form of interaction. And that's when people start getting under each other's skin. And
Yeah,
that
exactly.
creates good film,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. But I like, it's a weird one for me because I'm a purist. So I just love fighting. I love martial arts. So, like, this is like the other side of things, and I get it. I get there has to be entertainment for it to sell, but it's just not my favorite part of everything, you know, that kind of way. So it's a bit of a strange one for me. Plus, like, I actually hate reality TV in general. And I slag it to people, and then they're like, "You were on a reality TV show, you dope." So yeah, it's not great for that side of things, you know. But I think they were talking about bringing it back. I'm interested to see if they're going to revamp it, and maybe, you know, like, I didn't mind the season. Do you remember the season they had the teams? It was one of the later seasons. They had the, like, Black Zillions against ATT. I think that's a great idea. I'm kind of like the old IFL. Do you remember that, the IFL, International Fight League, where they had, like, team versus team? I think that's a great idea. I think that'd be really good.
Those coaches didn't get on from Black Zillions.
No, they didn't. No,
Not
the owners hated each other. One of them was an investor, wasn't he? And one of them was
One was like a legit, you know, jiu-jitsu practitioner, and the other one was kind of invested in it. And because of that money, he attracted certain fighters to that gym. And so they had that clash. There wasn't that pure between them, right?
Yeah. Usman was on the Black Zillions, right, at the time.
Really? I didn't even realize.
I think Usman won that season, if I'm not wrong. Yeah, I think Usman won that season. Yeah, he was Black Zillions. So I think like, your man from ATT opened Black Zillions with a load of money, and then was just taking lads off ATT to the team, you know. Yeah, a bit of a weird one. Yeah.
Sure,
No, again, not a lot of purity in that. You know what I mean? It's not really my scene.
So, brother, is there no chance soon that we're going to see you on maybe like Gogglebox or anything like that?
No, not a hope in hell, mate. Not a hope in hell. Yeah.
Brother Chris, now you've had a lot of coaches and mentors through your martial arts journey, and you may have some now. Are there any coaches or mentors that have played a significant role? And if so, who are they, and what role have they or are they playing in your martial arts life?
Yeah, so, like, I still have a lot of the coaches that I would have had most of my career, you know. So Tom King has always been my jiu-jitsu coach. Now he's my business partner. We own, like, Team KF together, and so he's the K in the KF, me being the F, obviously. But he's a second dan jiu-jitsu black belt. He's at this moment in time ranked number 1 in his division in Europe for jiu-jitsu. So at black belt, he's a savage. So he was always someone that I bounced off, and a lot of other guys on the team did. And then of the same striking coach I've had, my striking coach is Phil White. He's actually the guy that was in the corner for Ian Gary with me, baldy guy. So he's now coaching Ian, so that's passed on. And then of the same strength and conditioning coach, Owen Lacey, and his mentors are now coaching on my guys. The guys that were under Owen are all coaching my students now. So it's kind of cool. It's kind of passing down through it's really cool to see. Like, so the guys that came through on their own now are at building their own gyms and stuff. And so they're now working with a lot of my fighters. And I always worked with Owen. Phil's now working with my fighters. And then Tom's working with them on. It's great. It's great to have. Like, it's great for it to pass through like that.
Well, it's interesting you're saying the passing on, because there was a time when you was the Cagewarriors middleweight champion, and it must have been cool having your fight there last week and having the belt there. How did that feel, brother?
Yeah, I think like James. So James went and won the exact same belt as me, and now he's one fight away, and he's like looking like he's going to be a superstar, So it's kind of cool to like. I've always had a close relationship with the Yellow Gloves, and I plan on having a couple more fights or one more fight, and I think if I do it, it'll be under the Cagewarriors banner just to finish out. I've always kind of some of my favorite experiences in fighting were on that show, and some of my favorite memories are from that show, and some of my good friends fought on the show, and I'd be very close with everyone involved in the backstage and all that kind of stuff. So I think I'd like to don them one more time. But yeah, it's very cool to see my guys come through, and it's very cool for them to be fighting for the same belts I had and all that kind of stuff. It's really cool. It's really cool. The show is just it's a mainstay, isn't it? In European martial arts, it's important. It's hugely important. I'd like to see Bama make a comeback as well. I don't know if Graham Bowen would be happy with me saying that, but I would. I think like Bellator look like they might be pulling out at the moment. They're not going to be doing too many shows here, I don't think anymore. So I'd like to see something like Bama revived. I think we need a few shows again. We need a few bigger shows for guys to fight on, for the opportunities to go to the UFC or whatever else they're going to do.
And is it Jude Samuel that kind of heads Bama?
So I think Jude was looking after Bellator now, but he was Bama, yeah. Jude was looking after it. I think it was Dave Green was the guy who owned it or something like that. But I'd just be interested in some, like, it doesn't have to be Bama, but a show like that coming back, another big show. Maybe it doesn't even have to be in England, maybe a big French show or something, just something else in Europe to give guys an opportunity. Cagewarriors is amazing, and the guys are amazing at matchmaking, and they're amazing at getting shows off the ground and all that kind of stuff. The problem is they just can't put enough shows on. There's too many guys need fights. It's not their fault. It's great how good their business is, that their problem is they have to turn fighters away, So I've like a lot of guys coming through at the moment, and it's difficult to get them fights. It's easy to get them fights, but it's difficult to get the fights on the road, that kind of way. So I'd be interested in another show coming in and being able to put them on those too.
And it's not for trying, because Cagewarriors, last week they had the trilogy, so they had a show on Thursday, Friday, Saturday. They're going to do it again in June, and I think they're doing it again in September, right?
Yeah. Yeah, but see what happens there for the lads, and it's immense what they do and how they manage to pull off during all this. Obviously I was there at the show, so the amount that has to go on backstage to make this work, to like testing people, making sure, like not only did we have to get tested, then we had to get another test to be able to fly home, all this kind of stuff. So all that organization, and then making sure no one leaves the hotel, the bus are picking everyone up, bringing them to the venue, making sure no one's mixing with anyone else from outside. But like if you do up all those shows over the year, it's probably still only 12 shows. So it's still only one show a month that's running at the minute in like Europe, basically. My guys are booked on a show here. It's supposed to happen tonight, and it got cancelled on Thursday. And like, so those guys are weight cutting at that stage. They've done everything, and that's how they make a living, and it's just cancelled on a Thursday. And it just seems like there's a lot of shows saying they're going to run, and then they're not going ahead. But I don't even know if the lads are making the right effort. That kind of way. I don't know if they're. How do you only find out on Thursday when the fight's on Saturday that the show ahead? It's unfair. I just kind of want the opportunity for the lads to fight, and on good shows that I know are going to go ahead, like a Cagewarriors. It's just that Cagewarriors have so many guys, and there's so many guys looking to get on. It's just not enough places. That's where it is.
Well, Cagewarriors is an amazing show, and I was speaking to Paul Rimmer, and he was telling me that there's over 100 people who have gone through Cagewarriors as a feeder show and ended up in UFC. And he says what people tend to do is they focus on the end goal without looking at strategy to get there. So people will say, right, I really want to get in the UFC, and the UFC might be some distance away, but they need to focus on the stepping stones to get there. And Cagewarriors is a feeder show for it, right?
Yeah. And they're trying to build guys correctly, and not like, see, there's the problem. People think when you say build guys, it means fight a lot of cans, get to the UFC. That's not good. The thing is now, and Paul's a great example for me, because I'm a much newer coach. So I'm looking at guys like Paul Rimmer, James Doolan, these kind of guys. I'm following their lead. That's what I'm doing. I'm tracking behind those guys because I want to do what they're doing, And I'm looking at the way they handle things. And the likes of Paddy there, Paddy's UFC ready. He's been battle tested over and over again. He's had the tough fights. He's done everything he needs to do at this level. To be honest, he's already fought guys at
like a prelim level in the UFC. There's guys he's fought that are prelim level in the UFC already. So he's walking in there. He's not going to be like taken aback by the pressure or taken aback by what a guy does. He's already felt it all. He's walked out in that Echo Arena in Liverpool. I was there. I was there when he fought. It's mental. He walks out. There's like 20,000 people screaming. You know what I mean? He's at the selling out the whole arena. Like, so the pressure's not going to get to that kid. You know what I mean? So I think like that's the strategy was correct there. And you have the same with James. You know, maybe not as his guys aren't as crazy as Paddy, but like you have James. His guys went through. They were like Bam a champion. They were Cagewarriors champion. And then they go to the UFC like Stevie Ray. They're just ready. They're ready. They've been tested. You know what I mean? So I think the boys have it set, and I'm just following their lead at the minute.
Well, when I was speaking to, there's Matthew the Beast Bonner, who also fought on Cagewarriors, and he's under Paul Rimmer, and he was saying to me when he was backstage, he said, you know, for him, you get a bit of anxiety, you know, a bit of nerves, and you kind of you have a bit of an adrenaline dump, and you know, you get ready, you have that process. But with Paddy, he's completely different. He's just like, there is no, I'm going to lose. All that's not in his mind. And he's just, he just can't wait. He's chomping at the bit. And that's the difference with certain fighters. They might have the skills, but it's dealing up here, right?
So I'm very open with my guys about this because I've always struggled with that side of the game. I get really nervous. Yeah, like I kind of, it's weird. I could do anything for a living. You know what I mean? Like I'm not, without being an asshole, I'm a smart guy. I could do anything I want, right? Within like obviously I couldn't do anything I want. No open heart surgery, but like, you know, I could do pretty much anything. I make probably more money than I make now. But so like when I'm out the back of the fight, I'm going, what the fuck am I doing? Sorry for Chris. But like I'm like, why am I here? What am I doing? Why am I doing this? This is mental. Why are two lads going to go into a cage now with a load of people watching us? You know what I mean? And have a scrap in the, you know, an organized fight. But it's like, and I get all those feelings, and I'm very open with my guys, so they don't think they're weird for getting them too. And then it's just, for me, it's like the plunge. It's like, you know, when you're going to jump into the sea and it's freezing cold and you're like, shit, and you jump down, and it's a great feeling. That's the same with fighting. It's like forcing myself to make the walk, because once I get in there, the door closes, everything else goes away. Can't think about anything for the time I'm in the cage. Nothing else exists. Can't think about bills, can't think about problems, just fighting. That's it. Reptilian.
But that's the thing, you kind of end up with that tunnel vision and nothing else affects, you know. And you talk about not thinking about bills and other stuff. And I have that similar sort of feeling when I do a bit of sparring in jiu-jitsu. When you're there and you're rolling, you don't think about anything. And it's such a cool feeling, right? Yeah,
it is, yeah. I speak a lot to people about, when I speak about grappling, because I love MMA, but like my favorite part of MMA is grappling, no-gi grappling. It's my favorite part. It has been for almost forever, really. Like since I found grappling, I've loved it. I started off like I was doing jiu-jitsu before I ever fought. You know what I mean? I did jiu-jitsu competition before I ever fought MMA. But I like, it's very hard to think of your little shitty problems at home when some guy could strangle you unconscious in a couple of seconds. You know what I mean? You're living in that moment. You know that one error is going to get you in a lot of trouble. So you have to be switched on, like focus, laser focus, you know? And there's not many things, like football doesn't do that. Football, a ball comes to you and then you're switched on. But the rest of the time, you're a little bit airy-fairy and you're flown around. You've loads of time. You stand there scratching your ass, thinking about stuff. You know what I mean? Like, whereas jiu-jitsu, it's like, boom, on. That's it. Everything is happening in this moment. That's it. You know? That's amazing.
There's a good friend of mine who's into different sports, but he's not into grappling or jiu-jitsu or anything. And I tried to explain it to him. And I said, look, just think about this, right? You know, the scene of 300, you know, when he's out there and he's zoning in and he can't think of anything else but just everything that's there. You have that sense where you become really acute and you sharpen. But also, when you finish and you go home, and if there's a final reminder for a utility bill, it's not really going to bother you. You'll kind of rationale and work around it. Whereas if you don't have that release, it kills you, right?
Yeah. But I don't know if that is the same for everyone. Maybe all of us find it because that's how we are. More like, you know, it's hard. So it's hard to know how anyone else thinks, you know, that kind of way. And this is one of the issues, I think, with grappling or jiu-jitsu. We become annoying. We start thinking that everyone has to do it and everyone has to love it as much as we do. You know what I mean? Because we're so obsessed. And it's hard to meet anyone that does jiu-jitsu that's just a hobbyist. People are just in. They're all in. They fucking wear the clothes, they do this, they're, you know, it just takes over life, man. It's all consuming. It's like I don't know. It's like you're into rock music, you're into hip hop. That's it, and I hate everything else. That's it. That's it. And yeah, jiu-jitsu is a little bit like that. And we try to convert everyone over. We're like the worst religion. We're like the worst religion. Yeah, that is it though. We can't just leave people alone. We're like, no, you gotta come, you gotta try it. You have to. With some lads like, I don't like rolling around the ground with people. No, you will love it. I promise you will love it. They probably won't. It's probably just not for them. I think, us guys that do it for any period of time, you love it. That kind of way. There's plenty of people that come and go though. Plenty of people that drop off. And it's just because it's not their thing, like.
Yeah, for sure.
But you want that escape. You want to live in your moment. You want all that, and that's where you're searching for. It doesn't exist in much else.
Yeah, no, 100%, man. I love it, me. It's just great.
Yeah.
And even though, right, 9 times out of 10, brother, I'm the nail and not the hammer. But you have different wins. It's like, how long can I last? How long can I not stay on my back? You kind of create different wins, right?
Yeah, I don't know, obviously I run a club, so I have to put a bit of emphasis on not getting hammered in rounds, because it doesn't look great if everyone is battering you on the mat. But like the standard is very high in the gym. I think we've about 6 or 7 black belts. Now I roll no gi at a very high level, but because I'm always told by people, how are you not a black belt yet? It's like, because I don't wear the gi very often, so it's almost like to assume that you're a black belt in something that's a completely different sport. That's what it's like. I'm very good no gi. I'm very good, very comfortable around with any black belts. But in the gi, I don't still to this day, my understanding of grips and all isn't great, But when I'm rolling with certain guys, I have them little goals still. Like my coach Tom, I'm like, a guard pass. When I get a guard pass and get a top position, I'm delighted with life. That kind of way. I'm delighted. And it's not like he's hammering me every other time, but to pass someone of that standards guard, you know what I mean? It's just, it's immense. Like, to be getting top positions on those guys, because we all know, at that very high level in a comp, that's the game over. Once you pass, that's pretty much it. There's no getting back. That kind of way. There's not really much chance of getting back in the gi. Once you get past, but to be fair to Tom, the passes are rare. So that's why I enjoyed him so much, I think.
True, brother, true. Well, you mentioned Tom a couple of times. Can we talk about the inception of Team KF? How did that come about, and where's it at now?
Me and Tom, like I said, Tom would have even has taught me jiu-jitsu for as long as I've done jiu-jitsu. He was the guy I was talking about when I went to that traditional martial arts club. He was already a blue belt in open SPG, and so when I joined, he was already a purple. He was teaching classes, and he'd been a black belt for I think maybe 7 or 8 years now. He's or 6 years, 6, 7 years. But he's so for all my fights, I would have met up with Tom, and we would have rolled when all through my career. So I would have made a point of meeting up with Tom and roll for an hour, just me and him, this kind of stuff. And a lot of other guys on the team did too. And so he was a mainstay in all the grappling classes we went to too. When there was the what they call the golden age, all the when that team in SPG was at its peak, and we were all Cagewarriors champions, and everyone was pushing for the UFC. And so Tom would have been teaching grappling to everyone at the time. That he would have been the jiu-jitsu coach in the club. So he's always been the guy I went to for my grappling stuff. And I was thinking about doing this for a while, about opening my own place in Swords where I live. And I had a little chat with Tom. He was really on board with the idea. He liked it too. So we just got looking for a place. We found a place then, and then me and Tom had known each other for a long time too. We have mutual friends. So we've been Tom was at my wedding. At my stag, we go out together on a regular basis, this kind of stuff. So it just works. Where we abuse each other from a we're in the Muppets, those two angry men, the two, we're like
on
those.
The balcony.
Yeah, that's us too. Yeah, that's us. We abuse everyone else and each other. So that's our relationship. But it's built on mutual respect. And then there's really the big thing between us, because we'd be quite different personalities. Tom's very stoic and quiet, but the two of us have the same kind of true north. So we what's right is right. That's kind of it. That's how we see everything. So yeah, we're not willing to bend our principles for anyone. That kind of way, and that works for both of us. So.
Now, brother, before we came on camera, I asked you about the name that you came up with, right? And it must have taken a lot of thinking to come up with that name, brother.
we thought about a few, because we were thinking I'd run the Gogi by him, where the Spartans learn to fight. So I'd run that, but like he was like, everyone's gonna pronounce it wrong. No one will understand what it means. They'd be like, "What's a gog? A gook? All this kind of stuff." So we were thinking like, and then we had a load of them, and then when we wrote it out, Tom's quite good. He's quite artistic too. The guy can draw, like, and he kind of did a rough sketch of it where like the K, but there's a piece missing off one end, and it kind of just sits symmetrically. It looks good, and I was like, and I think we were chatting about this. Like, I wanted to move away from a snake molesting a gorilla or whatever is going on in the back of a hoodie. I thought that like that kind of had run its course in MMA. I think it has, and like even you see with Venom, obviously they're an older school brand, but it's going to be a much sleeker design now. It used to be like this thing and a big cobra coming out the front of the chest. That's all going to tone down now. You'll see, because people just don't want to be walking around in that stuff every day to day. So we wanted something kind of sleek that goes on tracksuits and hoodies and t-shirts, and then like when you're competing, it looks nice and it's very easy to spot who's who and all this kind of stuff. So it just worked. Yeah, it just worked.
Sure, brother, man. Now, for you, Chris, do you encourage your students to compete in other disciplines, or do you just stick to MMA as a discipline itself?
So like the majority of our people in the club are jiu-jitsu guys. That would be most people that train, and we'd have like a very high competition rate. So like about 60% of people that train on the team compete at some stage, like they wouldn't compete every month or whatever, but they compete quite regularly. We have a very like good turnover because it's something we kind of push people. But I have rules for MMA, so I'm very strict on how lads like come onto the MMA team. So the rules for getting an amateur fight, you have to have at least a blue belt, or you have to have medaled at a local competition. So bronze, silver, or gold at a decent level. It doesn't have to be an IBJJF, but it has to be a decent level, like the Dublin Open or one of these type things, and not the IBJJF, and then the other thing is they have to have a K1 fight. So I want that no matter what their style is, whether they're going to be a grappler or whatever, they've been in there under the cosh, had to bite down their gum shield and show a little bit. And it's with a crowd too, so you get used to that before you have what you want to do, which is your MMA competition. And then I found, I haven't always stuck to that. That hasn't been like 100% every guy, but most of my guys, that's what they've gone through. Some guys are so good at grappling, you kind of give them a little bit of a pass on the K1 fight or whatever. But generally, that's what I've done with most of my guys that come through. So it's either blue belt or medal at a no-gi at a high level competition, or and kickboxing fight.
And do you have like a number in mind when it comes to how many amateur fights, or do you just kind of gauge it on the athlete themselves?
Yeah, it'll be person to person. To be honest, I judge a good bit, like a bit from the fights, but I judge a lot by the gym and the improvements I see in the guys. And you can kind of, I don't know, I can almost tell, like before the guy even fights, I can tell what way he's going to go down. There's always the odd lunatic who surprises you, and he comes out of nowhere, and you're like there's a 17-year-old kid in the gym. His name is Brendan, and he's just, you're going like 1 week or 1 month, I was like, oh, he's like grand, he's like the rest of the teams, and the next month he's an absolute savage, and you're going, what has happened here? Just so something clicks. Now the kid wants to train all the time. Obviously at the moment he can't, but he wants to train all the time when we're open, non-stop. He's a mat rat, you know what I mean? He's never out of the place. And just like, you just turn around one day and he's good all of a sudden, like really good, and you're going, what has just happened? Like high level jiu-jitsu, really good wrestling, really good striking, and like yeah. So there is those guys. So you're not, you don't see it straight away. And then there's other kids, I look at them and I see them throw a couple of shots, I'm like, that kid's gonna be an animal. It just looks fluid and nice and right, that kind of way, and you see that way they move and how they look. But yeah, so I kind of like let lads like have a few whammies, and then I kind of figure out I'm not into them having 30 amateur fights. I'm really not. Like if I've a couple of guys in my gym, which I think is really cool. They only want to fight amateur, so they have no interest in going pro. They have jobs. They have good jobs. Carl Gallagher is a good one. He started his own company, and basically he lets houses off people, and then he lets them to professionals. So he looks after all the stuff. So he's like, it's a great little business idea. So he only ever wants to fight amateur. I think that's the coolest thing I've ever heard. That someone, literally, that's his soccer. He just wants to go have a knock on a Saturday. Like one of the fights he had a fight, got in his car and drove to a Metallica concert. You know what I mean? This is how he's looking at it. It's just fun. It's just fun to him. You know what I mean? And then I've other guys that they tell me from the time we start that this is what they want to do for a living. So I'd be focused in on them and going like after 5-6 AMI fights, see where they're at, and then maybe think about turning pro depending on age and all that kind of stuff.
Sure, man. Well, thank you so much for sharing that with us, brother. Now, if there's someone who wants to go professional, so they've done the amateur bit and they're ready to go professional, from your knowledge and experience, not just as a coach, but as a professional athlete, what advice would you cascade down to them?
Yeah, I kind of think like I think a lot of people think it's a rule set. It's not like it's a mindset. It's how you like approach the sport in general. So every aspect of it. And not like no one's saying everyone's perfect all the time. You're going to eat some crap, or you're going to. But like, I had jobs and I left them to do this. So I always approached the sport like a job, as in, like I felt like I had to do a certain amount of hours a week. I felt like I had to do all the other bits that had to be done, you know, and put in little bits extra, because I was 25 when I had my first fight, and which is quite late to come to a sport, you know, at a professional level. And I always felt like, you know, like I was with my now wife at the time, and I was kind of derailing her life a little, because you're obviously going to get paid a lot less as a professional fighter in the early days than you are working in a bank, is what I was doing before. So I was derailing her life a little bit. So I felt like if I didn't give it everything and put everything into it, I was kind of letting them people down. And I think that's a nice way to look at it for people. Like, don't, you know, it's not just the same as when you're amateur, and then when you turn professional, you have to be professional about everything. You know what I mean? About your diet, about how you show up, come early to the gym, be on, like, always be before time. Don't be one of the first guys there. Put the extra sessions in, eat the right things, you know, all these kind of things. Do, like, get yourself a strength and conditioning coach. Don't just like show up to the gym and do a few sessions and go home. That's not professional, that's amateur. You know what I mean? So yeah, think of it more as a mindset rather than a rule set to fight under. And I think most guys will benefit from that. I think as well, like, just make sure you're in the right gym. You know, if it's not if we're talking about someone outside of my own gym, make sure you're in the right gym and your coach isn't some guy taking you for a ride. And I don't mean that he's trying to rip you off or anything. I just mean he doesn't really know what the fuck he's doing either. So he's not really guiding you in any direction, you know? And yeah, just if you surround yourself with the right people, you're going to go far in this sport. You know, you get on the right shows and it'll make you like a Paddy there. You know, his coach had a roadmap. I'm like an Ian coming through from my place. There's a roadmap laid out for these kids. And it's a lot easier than when I did it. I don't know if Paul had a good few fights or whatever, Paul Rimmer, but like if he did, a lot easier when he did it too. When we did it, you were just scrambling for any fights you could get. Now there's like a direct roadmap. No one had fought in the UFC from the Republic of Ireland when I started fighting. This wasn't a thing, like, you know. So we were just scrapping because we didn't know what else to be doing. We wanted to fight. We wanted to try something. We wanted to change that, you know. But the idea of lads like ending up like Connor did off the team is insane. You know what? It just was beyond anyone's wildest dreams. It just didn't really exist in any of our brains. No matter how far we thought about it, you thought like you'd get to the UFC, have a bunch of fights. One of us might end up a champion. Not one of us being the biggest pay-per-view draw in like MMA history. You know, that kind of way. So yeah, I think get in with the right people, and the roadmap is there for you. You're in the right gym. You know, it's an easy run to where you want to go.
Chris, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and experience, and I look forward to hopefully having you on future podcasts, my brother.
Thanks, man, and thank you for having me. I loved it. Great crack.